Hello, class, and welcome back. Today is the part two for transported humans, and in part two, we're going to talk about the functions of the blood. If you remember last time, the blood is made out of four things: plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and also platelets. Today, we're going to look at the function of each of these things. So, first, red blood cell. What is their function? Red blood cell transports oxygen. So the oxygen from the lungs is carried to every part of the body in the red blood cell. So this is why this chapter is called transport in humans, because the red blood cell transport oxygen from the lungs to everywhere else in the body. So this is the cell that helps carry oxygen all around the body. So how does it do that? It is thanks to the hemoglobin that is in the red blood cell. So, what happens and how does the red blood cell do this? First, oxygen from the lungs combine with the hemoglobin in the red blood cell to form oxyhemoglobin. So, this happens in the lung. So, oxygen that is in the lung will go to the red blood cell and combine with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin has a dark red color, whereas oxyhemoglobin has a bright red color. The red blood cells then go to the body tissues, in other words, other parts of the body, other cells. So at the tissues, there is a low concentration of oxygen there, so that means there's not a lot of oxygen there. So the oxyhemoglobin breaks down to release oxygen. This way, every living cells in the body is supplied with oxygen. So once the red blood cell has reached to a specific cell in the body, to other parts of the body, the oxyhemoglobin, remember the hemoglobin with the oxygen, breaks down or separates to become oxygen and hemoglobin, and the oxygen is then given to the other cells in the body. And that's how the other cells get the oxygen from the red blood cell. So this is a very simple diagram of what it looks like in the body. So let's say this is your lung, and you can see these things here are oxygen molecules. So this is in the lungs. There's a lot of oxygen there, and then these are the red blood cell. So the red blood cell all come around to the lung, and then each red blood cell will pick up oxygen. So you can see oxygen going into the red blood cell here. Okay, so the oxygen goes into the red blood cell, joins with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. And then you can see the red blood cell with the oxygen inside then goes to the other cells, or in other words, body tissues that is in the other parts of your body. So once they reach to other cells, what they do is the red blood cell and the hemoglobin will break down to release the oxygen from inside of the red blood cell, and this oxygen will then go into the other cells for the other cells to use. And then the red blood cell will again go back to the lungs and pick up oxygen again, and then the cycle continues on. Okay? So basically, red blood cell goes to the lung, pick up oxygen, and then red blood cell goes to the other cells, other tissues, gives oxygen to the other cells and other tissues, and then red blood cells goes back to the lungs. Okay, so it's this cycle here. So iron is very important for our red blood cell. If a man lacks iron in his diet, so if you lack iron as a nutrient, what happens? He will become pale. Why does he become pale? That's because hemoglobin is a protein that contains iron. Without enough iron in the diet, in what you eat, not enough hemoglobin will be produced. This makes the person become pale and breathless. Okay, it's very hard for this person to breathe. Now let's talk about the white blood cell. What's the function of the white blood cell? The white blood cell protects the body against germs that causes diseases. So this is a very important cell. So if you remember, there are two common white blood cells, and these are the phagocytes and the lymphocytes. The phagocytes protects the body from disease causing germs by engulfing and digesting them. This process is known as phagocytosis. So you can see in this diagram, when the phagocyte meets a germ, you will see the phagocyte will engulf, will surround itself around the germ, and then it will digest the germ, and then the germ will die. What about the lymphocytes? The lymphocytes produce chemical substances called antibodies to kill germs. So the phagocyte and the lymphocyte both work together to kill germs so that your body will be healthy, you don't get sick. What about platelets? What do they do in the blood? The platelets help in the clotting of blood. Let's say you have a cut, and then what happens when you have a cut? Your blood becomes dry, and then you will have what we call a scab. So let's look at the process. So this is your skin, and this is your blood vessel. This is your skin tissue, and this is the surface of the skin. Okay. So in your blood vessel, there are a lot of things. What happens when you cut ataupun ada luka arah kulit kamu? When the skin is cut and bleeding occurs, the platelets clump together at the wound. So there's a cut, you can see, and then the platelets will immediately go to the cut like that, okay? And then the platelet and damaged cells of the skin then produce a substance which converts fibrinogen to fibrin. So a substance called fibrinogen, which are these things here, will then go to the cut and then becomes fibrin. Okay, so it looks like this. So they will go there and then form fibrin, which looks like this, a network of threads that forms across the wound, just so that it can close the wound. And then what happens after that? The red blood cells will go to this cut, to this exposed place. So the red blood cell will go there. You can see here and form a blood clot. So the red blood cell will harden and form a blood clot. So the blood clot prevents further loss of blood so that no more blood can go out, and also stops germs from going into our body, from going into the wound. So after some times, the clot dries up to form a scab, which will drop off once the cut skin is healed. So if you wonder kenapa kalau kamu luka, lepas satu ia kering, lepas tu ada kulit karas di atasnya, this is what we mean by scab. Once the cut skin is healed, you can pick off the scab and you can see your skin has been fully healed and joined back together. What about the plasma? What's the function of the plasma? So the plasma transport useful substances to all the body tissues and remove waste materials produced by body tissues. So the plasma just carries all these other things around and helps the red blood cell, the platelets, the carbon dioxide to move around the body. Okay, to summarize, what do you need to know? You need to know the function of each of the parts of the blood. For the red blood cell, the function of the red blood cell is to transport oxygen. For the white blood cell, the function of the white blood cell is to protect the body against germs that cause diseases. For the platelets help in the clotting of blood. So if you have a cut on your skin or a wound on your skin, the platelets will help to form a scab, and the scab will cover the cut skin to prevent any germs from going in and to prevent any more bleeding to happen. And lastly, the function of the plasma is to transport all the useful substances in the body and also to transport waste products from the body tissues. And that's pretty much it for part 3, which is the next video lesson. We're going to look at the circulatory system and what is inside it and what's its function.